Special meeting for the Lift Board to order on Monday, July 2nd, 2018 at 6:30. We'll start with the roll call. Carol Breziak.
Here.
Jason Henderson. Here. William Hopping.
Here.
Joseph Areno.
Here.
Jack Reinchecke. And Kevin Seiler is present. We also have Stephen Kemp, who has joined us this evening. And we'd like to welcome any neighbors who have joined us online. Oh, Cindy, I'm sorry. Cindy, you know what? I retyped this. I retyped Cindy Christensen. Right?
Yeah.
Okay, so I retyped this tonight, and my apologies. All right. We do not have any minutes for tonight to approve. Public comment. There's no public here to make any comment. No financial report. No committee reports. No unfinished business. So we're just going to get to the new business, which is a motion to approve the RFP for selection of a Lift Council. And I'll turn it over to Jason and Joe at this point.
So I can talk a little bit about the RFP, and then I'll let Joe address the advertising aspects of it. So as to the RFP, we circulated several versions along the way, and received a lot of really valuable feedback. Carol, you had some great catches. Steve, you were invaluable. I think that we have a version that we're ready to share out. And I wouldn't add anything to that. I think the one thing that I might draw people's attention to is the dates, which will need to be changed. So the dates under Schedule of Activity, page 2. I had planned that we would issue this request for proposal on the 28th, and I think now we should move all these dates, we should move that back to, I think, I don't know, depending on, how soon do you think we can do the advertising?
So the Colorado Lawyer magazine is probably out of the question because they take September off.
Right.
So they do an August-September issue, and deadlines passed for the August-September issue. But there is the C brief, which is they boast 16,000 lawyers that it goes to bi-weekly, and that should be going out every other Thursday. So we can get into that at a cost of around $200. Yeah. So and that would be at least 2 weeks from this Thursday, depending on when the next one comes.
So, and 2 weeks from this Thursday would be what? That would be...
It would be the 19th. This Thursday is the 5th. So
yes,
it would be...
Yep, the 5th will be the night.
Just to play with this for a second. If we issued, so-called issued by advertising, because in theory somebody could see the ad that day and they could ask us for it, we could send it to them. So if we issued on July 19th, a date 2 weeks after that would be the deadline for submitting questions.
August 2nd.
So that would be 8/2 for submitting questions, and then a month hence would be the proposal for submitting deadline. So that would be 9/2, and then we would award the contract 2 weeks after that. So that would be 9/17.
9/2 is a Sunday.
Okay, so let's call it a 9/3. Now here's my question. If I make these, can we move to approve this RFP with these amended dates?
Yes, you can. And you might actually make it 9/4 because I believe 9/3 is Labor Day. So
Yes,
Oh,
it
good.
is.
Oh, got it. Okay. All right. And how does 9/17 look as far as it being a normal date?
Well, 2
You
weeks
don't.
seems like a pretty quick turnaround from deadline to awarding the contract.
Oh,
We're
that's a
going to
good
narrow
point.
down the list and then have interviews.
Yes. Okay, so do you think 3 weeks, or should we make it a month? Maybe a month would
A month makes sense to me.
So that would put it at 10/4. Is 10-4 a weekday?
10-4 is a Thursday.
All right, I don't see a problem with it being on a Thursday. So what that comes out to, just to read to everybody what these dates should say. The first line should say July 19th. The second line should say August 2. The third line should say September 4. And the fourth line should say October 4. So when we have a motion to approve some or another, somebody will want to say with the dates as proposed to be amended.
So if you're getting the submissions on the September 4th, our meeting is on the 13th. We would probably, depending on the number, I believe the full board wishes to interview, let's say, the top 3 firms. Will we do it on the 20th or have a special session the week of the 24th?
I think we very well could have a special session for this one, especially because there's normally so much business in a regular board meeting that I think it could use a special meeting.
Okay. Then we will I'll get with Wendy and figure out what day of the week of the 24th, and I'll set up a meeting so we all know it ahead of time when it'll happen on the 24th. So tentatively, sometime the week of the 24th, we'll meet with those firms. Will you be able to provide a report on the 20th with your preliminary rankings on whatever submissions?
20th of September?
Yes.
Okay. And the term of contract, therefore, that date also will move back. We'll give it a date of, it was to be awarded on September 1, and therefore the commencement of the contract on September 15th, just to make it exactly 15 days later. So we could make this, if we were going to do this, then October 19th. And remain in effect until a year after that.
2 years.
Oh, yes, 2 years. October 19th, 2020.
Are you saying 18 or 19, Jason?
1 and 9.
Thank you.
Any other changes?
The bid opening, are we going to just leave it with the strike through, or?
That was an oversight. It'd be okay to have it have a strike through, but since I'm, but if, I would actually like to go and remove it just to make it more clean, so I'm going to strike that now. And
Okay.
we can include that in the approval.
So do we have a motion to accept this RFP and move forward with this?
With the dates.
With the dates?
I move to accept this RFP, and we can list the dates as they.
Can you go ahead and,
Yes.
for the record?
Sure. I move to approve this RFP, changing the dates of June 28th to July 19th, July 15th to August 2nd, August 15th to September 4th, September 1st to October 4th, and then in the paragraph term of contract, both instances of September 15th to October 19th, and deleting bid opening, which is struck through.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion?
I'm assuming that the dates on this back page, Jason, do they need to be adjusted as well?
On the back page.
Request for proposal cover sheet. Proposal will be received by August 15th.
I'm sorry, where are we finding it?
I'm sorry, Jake, this, it's actually doesn't have a page number on it.
Oh, the cover sheet.
Oh, it's page 1, excuse me.
No, that's fine. So that would be also changed to September 4th.
Are there any other places for the dates?
I'll scan through to look at, well,
How about if we,
We'll have amended that all the dates can be correct to double check.
that's something.
I'll move to amend the motion that we make sure that all the dates within the proposal
Are
will
rationalized.
coincide with the ones that were in Joseph's motion.
Second.
Okay. Bill, you had some comments?
Are you going to vote on your motion?
We're still having discussions.
Obviously, this is my first meeting. Can somebody explain to me why we need to have a backup attorney?
I can explain it. So obviously, we avail ourselves of Mr. Kemp's services often, and that's a deal that we worked out with the city, and it works great. This is really strictly, a great deal of work is going into this to make sure that we do it correctly. But it's really, first off, only as a backstop in case we had an amazing amount of workload that we needed to throw to an attorney. That was more than was contemplated with our agreement with the city, or something that would put Mr. Kemp in a position where he couldn't represent both the city and the board, which is conceivable. But this backup attorney would represent Lyft. Lyft would be the client, and they would answer questions that we gave them. So we wouldn't be expecting them to attend, for instance, every meeting. But if there were a special meeting, or if there were a meeting we wanted them to attend, then they could attend that.
What budget are you thinking for this?
I'm actually trying to remember now what the...
I don't have it with me either. Do you have the budget from last meeting?
That's why with the RFP, for one thing, is to get people's proposals on what...
I ask because there are a lot of boards and commissions in Littleton, and
Yeah.
council has an attorney. None of them have backup attorneys. And when you get more than one attorney, obviously you get more than one opinion. I think it costs you time. It costs you money.
Well, if it's
And
worth
it
doing,
gets
it's
you-
worth spending money on. I mean, no disrespect.
Right.
But that's... Go ahead, please.
My point is that it creates a redundancy and causes conflict. I don't, unless you get to a point
Yeah.
where, a city never has a backup attorney. Organizations don't have backup
But the
attorneys.
city,
and-
the city
Can you
attorney
please
is...
let me
Yes, sir.
finish. It's very rare in any organization to have contracts with backup attorneys that are there to answer questions that you may not have liked from your primary attorney. When city council interviewed attorneys, they went through a whole swath of people.
Yeah.
And Mr. Kemp emerged at the top. He's negotiated the Super Bowl with Glendale, Arizona. I think he's probably strong enough to deal with the Lyft board.
But
And I understand what you're saying, but I think you're lining up the opportunity for the board to spend a lot of money that is in conflict with our mission, which is to commit urban renewal.
Right.
And we're looking at spending money in other areas. And I just like to understand fully why the board feels it's necessary to have a backup when we have a perfectly well-qualified attorney here. And I mean, if second opinions are needed, Mr. Kemp knows where to get them, or we could handle it at that point in time.
I want to throw to you, but I want to just really quickly, the intent is absolutely not to create a conflict, and we have utmost respect for Mr. Kemp. The point is in case of conflict, because if he tells us where to go, we're still going to need to do this. But we will not be committed to an amount to spend. But go ahead, please.
Yeah, just a thing with the language, that we haven't ever considered this attorney as a backup attorney, but as the attorney for the Lyft board. And a big reason for that, as stated, is in the event of a conflict of interest, which to my knowledge isn't a present circumstance, but in the event that does happen, because that can happen given the nature of the LIF board relative to city council and its unique relationship, that if we had to begin this process at the time that Mr. Kemp could no longer offer us advice, then we would be stalled indefinitely. And with respect to cost, we have not asked this attorney, and I believe that in the original recommendation, it's all in there, we have not committed to this attorney coming to every meeting, but only on an as-needed basis as determined by the chair. So if there were an event, they'd be coming on an hourly basis, as needed to answer questions, and Chairman Seiler really holds the keys to the kingdom with respect to whether we're ever spending or not spending. So again, I think that it's, again, not a backup, this is our attorney. I understand if it were a backup, it would be an awkward arrangement. And one other comment that stuck out to me, and I'll be honest, I haven't researched it, but in the public comment early on, someone spoke really in favor of this because the LIF board has been charged to be covering its own expenses and paying its own way with the monies that are received. And this is in furtherance of that rather than relying possibly unnecessarily on the city's resources through Mr. Kemp because his time is a cost to the city as well.
Sure.
We are not set up as a regular board and commission, Bill. We're very different. We're authorized by the state. So to compare us to the others is really comparing an apple to an orange. And the urban renewal law gives us the authority to hire our own attorney if we should need. And Mr. Kemp has made it very clear that there will be times when there is a conflict of interest that he's representing the city and he cannot represent us. And we need someone that will represent us. So we had some issues, we meaning as citizens, I'm not sure so much as members of the past board, but with Corey Hoffman representing both the city and the LIF board, it did become problematic. So we need our own attorney so that when we are in those instances where we are not necessarily at odds, but you're on one side of the fence and we're on another trying to get to where we need to be, that we need to have our own representation.
I would ask Mr. Kemp, what happens in a city where the city council is actually the LIF board? Do they go out and hire multiple attorneys, including, and I'll use the term backup, understanding what you've said, Joe?
Members of the board, the answer would be yes. And let me just sort of step back here, and I'm going to try to do this, stay away from the legalese. Lawyers function under a set of rules called the rules of professional conduct, and this is true in every state. And Colorado's rules are very similar to those in most other states. And what it provides is that a lawyer cannot represent two clients where their responsibilities to each client, what we call materially limited, which basically is a fancy term for saying that you have issues where in representing one client it limits your ability to represent the other client. So in your example, if you had a city council acting as the LIF board, they would, at the time they have a financing or an application, likely select separate counsel to advise them on that application from the city attorney, simply because the LIF acts as what we call a conduit financing. You basically assist a project in obtaining financing. But conceivably, the lawyer for the city, myself, might have certain things that I want to recommend to the council that from the LIF board standpoint might interfere with their ability to successfully complete the financing. And there, I can't wear both hats. And so ethically, what I would do is if a project came in and there was an application, at any point, in fact, very early on, if I thought my representation was limited, I would be saying to this board, and the same would be true if it was a board, the city council was the board, I'd be saying, I can represent the city in all these items, but this area over here on the financing, you should get separate counsel who isn't limited in terms of my fiduciary duty to the city.
But if we entered into a project, I assume that we need a lot more than our $4,500 budget. You know, that's a whole different ballgame where the developer comes in and posts bond and we go from there.
Correct. We may, and what I think the board is trying to do is get us in a position where if a project were to come forward, one of the things that's on the agenda for the next meeting is to look at how an application gets submitted to the lift board and what is it, is it current, is it updated, is it what we want to have. So we're trying to be proactive in that if something comes forward, we're ready to deal with it. And we saw retaining separate legal counsel as part of that process, because we don't want to get into the situation where we have a project in front of us and Steve says, you know what, there's a conflict here, and then we have to go through this process. It's taken us 2.5 months to get to 3 months to get to this point. So again, we're not committing any dollars at this point to the firm. It's clearly stated in the RFP. I think once we understand what the fees may be involved, it helps us to determine what a budget would be.
Sure.
And, if there is a conflict, that'll be determined at that time whether we need to bring in that counsel to help us resolve it. If there's, even if it's a procedural thing that we disagree with the advice that Mr. Kemp has given us, which, his advice has been on point at this point, up to this time, but at some point there may be a situation where we may not agree as a board. So this is just, again, preliminary. It's not committing us to anything. It's not committing us to even have the person ever show up. If we never get a project, the likelihood that we have to call on their services is very slim. So that's...
So, let me offer a couple of amendments and hear what you're saying. On page 7, B, number I, it says the attorney or lead attorney in the case of multiple attorneys or firm must demonstrate a minimum of 7 years practice of the law in Colorado. I would amend that to add with significant experience in urban renewal listed and explained in the proposal. So we know we're not getting somebody who's dealing with fugitives instead of urban renewal.
If I may, I think it's a valuable suggestion. We are going to go through a matrix process where you'll have, all of us will have the opportunity to rank these, but I'm trying to see, I could swear that we have a point. There is we do note it in number 2.
Number 2 where?
I'm sorry, under background. The contracted attorney, let's see, will be hired for a minute. Okay, well that was about what will be somewhere I could say.
Desired qualifications.
See, there we go. The attorney must demonstrate familiarity with laws and controversies likely to present themselves to the lift board, including municipal law, including urban renewal and eminent domain law, familiarity with liabilities and requirements. Now I can see your point about maybe moving it up above, but since we the board are going to be the arbiters of who qualifies anyway, I think it'll be okay without adding it there. On the other hand, I have no objection to it.
Okay. Well, because demonstrating could be conversationally. I'd like to have the opportunity to see it and digest it ahead of time.
Okay.
Check the applicant out.
So you're suggesting that it read, minimum 7 years practice of the law in Colorado, comma.
With significant experience in urban renewal listed and explained.
Okay.
Now, Mr. Chair, I think we had a motion and a
Exactly.
second.
Yeah, we already have a motion.
Or that needs to be voted on.
So then, this is really the nature of an amendment.
That was the,
Yeah. So-
what they needed to
Another
vote on
amendment,
first.
you need another amendment at
That'd be
this
another
point.
amendment.
Correct.
So perhaps we should vote down the
You need to really
motion.
deal with one amendment at a time.
Okay.
So you have one amendment, so I'd ask that you deal with one amendment, then entertain the next amendment, and then after you get all your amendments done, you can deal with the main motion.
I'll withdraw my motion until you deal with it.
So do we need to vote
That was
down
date
the
changes.
motion on the
Well, the
floor so we
amendment
can
that's
start
on
over?
the floor is the dates, dealing with the dates, so that allows you to change any dates in here that will coordinate with the motion, the main motion that Joseph has made.
But be mindful that the main motion was to approve, so if we're going to continue discussion,
I think we have to vote that
not
motion down.
approving my motion.
Okay, so,
But we vote on the amendment first,
You need to vote on this amendment first.
Okay,
and then
Which is
Bill
date
can offer.
changes, right?
okay.
Yeah.
All right, so on the amendment, the first amendment, all those in favor saying aye? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, so now the motion's been amended with the First Amendment, and So you can now entertain another amendment.
Bill, do you have a motion to amend,
Yes.
further amend this?
I would like to add, or amend paragraph B1 in request for proposal on page 7. After the word Colorado, add the phrase with significant experience in Colorado urban renewal law listed and explained.
And that would strike out line 1 in under C?
No, they can stay.
It's
Okay,
just-
all right.
Okay.
Is there a second on the motion, on the amendment?
Second.
Any discussion? Joe?
I oppose the motion as stated. I think that one of the things that we discussed early on was sort of the desire to cast a wide net and then be able to evaluate all of the qualifications. So I believe that the experience in urban renewal law is listed as a desired qualification, and we can certainly ask for a demonstrated experience in urban renewal law down there, but I think that having it in B1 is unnecessarily limiting. You know, we can always limit ourselves later if we wish to, based on what we receive. So for that reason, I oppose further limiting the mandatory requirements, but if there were a different amendment to elaborate in desired qualifications, I would probably support that.
As soon as we vote on this, if it dies, I have a suggestion on how to amend it to perhaps illustrate that. I guess if we're in the middle of discussion, I can say it and leave the suspense.
Yeah.
What we could do, there's a motion on the floor, but if we were to further amend, we could say with attention paid to significant experience, so that, well, no, this is a description of mandatory requirements, so it's not about what they're talking about.
Don't we want to attract somebody with urban renewal experience? I mean, why would we keep it a secret until?
Because what if your experience is an eminent domain, but it's eminently useful? You know,
No pun.
right. It's a valid point. Carol?
Well, we had a real thorough discussion of this exact point. We limit ourselves greatly by limiting it to urban renewal offices, attorneys. I think there's 5 or 6. And we decided that we wanted to throw a wider net, that attorneys can interpret the law and come in and help us whether or not they are with an urban renewal, what do you call it, practice, right? And I mean, we thrashed it about quite a bit, that there was a real desire to really go out and see what we could entice into coming in and interviewing. And, you know, we may end up with somebody that has urban renewal authority. The thing is, we're not limiting ourselves to only those practices that exist right now.
It seems if we do urban renewal, we ought to have people who know urban renewal. And that should be told to us in the form of a resume or application. I mean, why would we hire somebody who is, I understand the broad net, but why would we hire somebody who doesn't have that?
Well, I would submit that we're not gonna. I mean, we're gonna get people to propose. You and I will go over a matrix together. If nobody fits our qualifications, we won't hire them. This isn't a contract we're sending out. This is a request for proposals.
Understood. So, I think I've stated my point.
Any further discussion? Okay, on the amendment, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
No? Okay, so just for the record, I want to be real clear here. It was Bill and Kevin, ayes? Okay, thank you.
Okay, the
So let
motion.
me throw out another one here, because I'm coming into this late, so tell me, obviously my first meeting, if this is in here somewhere and I missed it, but I would add B3, that just says simply, Liz shall have the option to cancel the agreement at any time without cause.
It's a really good question. I don't remember where a T4C is, but there's bound to be one. Now, one thing that there is that we're not committed to. It's at our sole discretion how much we use the attorney. So that would mean that even if we were contracted, we wouldn't be committed to use them. But what I don't remember is what it states about ending the contract itself.
We have something in there about if we do not get budget for a subsequent year, that terminates the contract automatically.
I'm just trying to be a little more open-ended.
And Bill, would you give me the exact language of your amendment, please?
It would be B, 3 I's. Is that a
Okay.
Roman numeral 3? Liv shall have the option to cancel the agreement at any time without clause.
I have no objection.
I second that.
Even if it's redundant with somewhere else, suits me fine, yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was in there somewhere. It may have been with.
Yeah, I thought so, but
We
it
took it
doesn't
out of
hurt.
that under the initial RFP.
Okay, and may I repeat it back? Liv shall have the option to cancel the agreement at any time without cause.
Right.
If I may, how do I amend, tweak that language just a little bit? I was going to suggest any reason or no reason.
It said without cause.
Without cause.
So,
I think without cause does that. That basically means that essentially any reason in the judgment of the gift board
We get
is
canceled.
sufficient.
That's standard. Okay, any further discussion on the amendment?
so we're voting on that.
Do you have any more discussion on that amendment?
I'm speechless.
Okay. Mark that down. Bill's speech. All those in favor of the amendment, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Okay.
No opposed.
What was the number that goes under?
B,
I.
and make it I.
It's I. Congress. And I have one other, just to beat it to death. And once again, I apologize. This is not my style. On page 8, no, I'm sorry, page 7, where we have scope of work, we have I, and IV, 1 through 4. I'd like to amend renumbering those 2 through 5 and inserting I at the beginning. And I know that this, Kevin, in our conversation, you said the intent is there, but I didn't see it. I'd like to make it more clear, and the amendment is, only the lift board chair shall engage the attorney for pay, and the chair shall do so only upon a majority vote of the board, and then only for the specific purpose authorized by the board. So that we can't individually call the attorney up and engage him.
Okay.
It protects, I think it protects the chair, and it protects our budget.
Bill, I'm sorry, we're doing this by hand. Can you do this, the amendment again?
Only the chair board.
Chair, lift
Only
board?
the lift board chair shall engage the attorney for pay,
Okay,
and the chair shall do so only upon a majority vote of the board, and then only for the specific purpose authorized by the board.
I lost you on shall do so only, for pay, and the chair shall do so only at the, how was that phrased again? I'm sorry.
Only upon a majority vote of the board,
Okay.
and then only for the specific purpose authorized by the board.
and you want that to be, okay, you said something about renumbering things.
I think under scope of work, it should be DI. It should be the first point, and then everything else just
So you,
drops down.
okay,
Although if the board thinks it's easier, just make it number 5. I don't,
Okay.
you know, I'm not.
Is there a second on the motion?
Second. but I think it's fine. I don't think it'll mean anything to somebody reading the RFP, but I think it's a good rule for us.
That's who it's for.
Okay, any discussion? Carol?
I think this is really, really restrictive and limiting without knowing what it is that we're going to be engaged in. If you need to get the attorney to a meeting, but you can't get him to the meeting because the group hasn't met in order to give you the permission to get him to the meeting, then we've pushed whatever the issue is just down the road another month. I have faith in everyone in this board to do the work that we sit here and agree to do, and we have been able to direct the chair to do what needs to be done when the group wants it to be done. And I think that this is just really hamstringing us in a situation where we just don't know what the circumstances are going to be in the future if we get a project. And we don't meet often enough as it is that
Well, and because it's a request for proposals, it seems like it may be too restrictive. It is something that I would see that you would put in the contract that we sign with the attorney that we're going to hire. I mean, there would have to be language in there that says this is the only time that you will get paid and this is the circumstances. So yeah, I agree. I think it's not for the request for proposals, but it's definitely something we should think about
as a policy.
when we actually move forward with the attorney that we're.
Does LIF have a set of operating procedures?
Yeah.
Do we have it?
Bylaws.
Because I'd be more than willing to pull this out and put it in the operating procedures. I just think we have a really limited budget, and we can't be spending it on attorneys when we should be learning how to do the mission of the board, which is to do urban renewal projects if they come our way. So I'm just trying to figure out a way that we don't have all 7 of us with the ability to pick up the phone and say, hey, what's going on? You know?
But I think that is a concern. I mean, that's kind of, it's come up with the city with, different members trying to do the subcommittee work, and there's been some issues there. So I think that is something we need to address at some point, whether it's in this forum or some other. We can have a further discussion on that if this motion fails, but I think it is something we do, because especially when you're talking attorneys, they usually get a significant amount of money and the meter runs when they make the phone call.
Other piece of it is if you are, I was, in a prior life, I was a country club manager, which is a whole different story, but that was structured, you only got your information from one board member. You worked for the president of the board, and the reason is, one person could say paint the ladies' bathroom green, and the other one says we were in pink, and you're stuck in a very awkward place. So, I'd be willing to reword it. It says, and I think it'd be more attractive to an attorney, it says it is understood that, instead of on the procedure.
If I may, to address Carol's issue, though, I think I agree that we need responsibility that you're talking about, like a central person who would be, that the attorney would be answering to. Kevin, the chair. And right now it contemplates the chair. The only issue that I can see with Kevin having to bring it back to the board if he wants to spend any money is in those cases where you want an attorney to attend a meeting, which is what Carol's bringing up, that might have to happen tonight. And there's no way to get the approval of the board beforehand.
But explain to me, Jason, when that would happen, because we do all our meetings in the open. I mean, what group of people would get together away from a meeting to decide you need an attorney at the next meeting that you wouldn't know at the prior meeting?
I mean, I don't know the answer to that, but I'm just saying that I am comfortable placing that responsibility in the hands of the chair. Because it seems to take the power out of the chair if he has to come to the next meeting and say, I'm thinking of next month bringing the attorney, and we all approve that. That just seems like a penny ante decision for something that he might, in his wisdom, think is worth doing. But I'm trying to think of a scenario where we got a meeting Thursday night, and I really think we need an attorney there. It's just I know in life things like that happen.
Sure.
But I don't know how to responsibly answer your question.
Okay.
Carol?
I could see a situation where somebody wants to do something within the urban renewal plan area and they contact you, and they want to come and talk to this board, and you want to have the attorney present. You make that decision. You're the chair. I think if someone approached me under the same similar circumstances, the first thing I do is pick up the phone and call you, Kevin. We've got this is what's going on. This is my conversation. Can I pass them off to you? And then you make the decision about what goes on with the meeting. This board does not spend money. We spend money on a videographer, and that's about it. We're about ready to spend some money on a website. I do our own minutes. We have $250,000 sitting in the bank. So we are not, I don't like to spend money frivolously, but I don't think having an attorney here, when any one of the group who talks to the chair and the chair agrees that we need to have an attorney present, is not spending our money wisely.
Okay, and I'm learning how you guys work, so this just seemed like a dangerous situation, I'll use in air quotes, because I'm sensitive to the limited funds, and I wouldn't want our funds frittered away by questions that are not absolutely necessary to go to the attorney. So if you have, it's totally different board say, but say if you have somebody that can twist the chairman's arm to, spend that money and they have no intent, then you're wasting your money. So
I interrupted you, I'm sorry.
yeah,
I'm wondering if we could split the difference. If the scenario of emergency meeting emergency is a strong word, but the chair thinking we need an attorney at the meeting versus anything else, would that satisfy us? Because I want the chair to be able to act quickly.
I do too.
Questions are not quick.
What if, is this a violation of open meetings? To add in there that it could be done by phone poll by the chairman. Is that? I don't.
No, I would have a concern with that.
Yeah.
I would just.
What I would like to say, we'll vote on this motion, but I think that for the terms of the RFP, and we should probably have more discussion about how any communication with the board, with any outside entity, whether it be council, other city boards, if we've got a proposal and we have to we want to meet with zoning and talk with them about what their thoughts are, or whatever that we have a broader discussion about how does that happen, and through that maybe come up with some guidelines somehow that address that. But I think Carol brings up a good point that if I were to get a call a week before the meeting from Mr. Chang,
Joe Lowe.
And he says, hey, we want to come and we want to start talking to you, it might be in our best interest to have the attorney there to start hearing what they're proposing instead of playing catch up down the road. I could see that scenario possibly playing out. It might be prudent to have everything in line, especially if we're not fully prepared for it over the next several months.
Well, and tonight's a special meeting. It's like we called a special meeting because we couldn't wait for our regular meeting. So I see that same thing happening. The chair can call a special meeting if we need one, and then you can get the attorneys at the meeting with the whole board. And I think that's kind of how we deal with when we have to meet on a less regular basis.
Carol?
I think also whoever we hire as an attorney should be part of this discussion. He may have some very workable suggestions for how a board works with that attorney, knowing what our structure is. But I think we have worked very well in coming together and discussing what it is on our agenda. And if there are things that have to be done in between meetings, that we've been able to get it done. And I just don't see that this is going to be an issue, and I agree with Cindy that if it is an issue, that it needs to be more of a policy position rather than something that's in the RFP.
Any further discussion? So on the amendment, all those in favor saying aye?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye. That was just
Motion
one.
fails.
Okay.
The amendment fails. Okay, any further discussion on the original proposal?
What we mean on the motion now is amended, because it's now been amended.
Yes, as amended.
Yeah. And just for the record, we have 2 amendments that have been approved. Everybody in
Right.
agreement?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Okay,
So I would just say that I hear the board saying that they understand the desire to keep things with Mr. Kemp unless absolutely necessary to go outside, and that discretion will rest with the chair and be used with haste, or not haste, but with reluctance.
Mr. Kemp's made it clear that there's a line that he can't cross. There's the conflict of interest, and I don't think he's crossed it at this point.
Certainly won't, and at any time, if my representation of you is materially limited, which is the words out of the rules of professional conduct, you will be the first to know, and you will know it very early on. If I even think that it might be materially limited, we'll be having that discussion.
okay. So on the amended motion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
And Joseph, would you, I want to double
Motion
check this.
passes. We do need a motion for spending authority, since this ad will cost some dollars.
Is it not in our budget already, Kevin?
We have not authorized the expenditure, so we need to authorize that through the, I mean, there is budget, there is the one budget line, and I have to look
Okay, and
at.
I just thought, under
I just-
legal, that it would fall under that? Is there?
Is
Mr.
there-
Chair, what I would recommend is that you simply authorize the expenditure if we need to adjust a line item at your next regular meeting. The finance director could bring back a resolution to adjust the line items
Right.
accordingly. So I think you should just authorize the expenditure and then let the finance director determine if we need to adjust your line items.
Okay, who knows what the money is?
So
Can you make?
I would recommend that you go a little over, just in case,
Okay.
like we did the website.
All right, then, so one appearance in the C brief is listed as $200, and I think once would be good enough, because there are those other listservs that are free of cost with the different practice groups. So that's $200, so if I absent, so I would move to authorize $250 for the placement of an ad for this RFP.
Second?
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
So that's a,
Yep, motion passes.
I wanted to just clarify the dates, because I didn't.
I wasn't really making this.
Oh, I did, well, that and the deep breath, I thought you were giving me. Okay, we're at the second public comment. There is no public here to make any comments. Do I have a motion to adjourn this special meeting?
So moved.
Second?
Second?
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you all very much. Have a spectacular evening.
Hey, Carol?